Very good afternoon, everyone. Well, welcome again to another uLaw webinar. Just want to make sure that you are dialing in to the phone number. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you do have the option of dialing in either using the phone or by using the soft phone on the Join Me webinar link. If there are any questions at all during the session, please use the chat window to send your questions in. This webinar is accredited by CPD hours, so I want to make sure that you understand that. Kindly send us an email acknowledging your participation in this CPD, and you would be able to search for everything practice management under the Law Society's website to be able to use the appropriate credit. As this is accredited both in Ontario and in British Columbia, the different provinces have their own accreditation for the CPD hours. The topic for today's webinar is, as you know, everything practice management. We're going to be talking about, again, we want to keep it as interesting and as meaningful as possible. I think everyone has heard of what practice management is, but our spin-off in delivering the CPD is to remind you of what the Law Society is to accomplish. But beyond that, what are you looking to gain out of ensuring that there's a discipline in how you manage not only your law firm from a perspective of a reputable legal office, but also as a business, especially for the solo practitioners, for the law firms that still have to run this as a business. We're going to be talking about components of practice management that go towards ensuring a very profitable, compliant, and a fun-filled legal life for you as a practitioner. So everything practice management is going to cover aspects of practice management. It's going to talk about how practice management in terms of software has come a long way to really make lives easier for you as a legal practitioner. So yeah, the next 1 hour or so is going to be exciting. Please feel free to send any questions you may have during the session. And I'm just going to start letting people in as they chug along. So please feel free to use the chat window rather than speaking. Okay, moving along, what I have really as an agenda, to really break it down as an agenda so that there's a little of a context to what I'm going to be rambling away for the next 1 hour or so. We want to take the professional obligations first, really look at what is the obligation that's expected out of you as a legal professional. We're going to be talking about right from your first introductory meeting with your client. It's an intake. How you offer your service to your client. How do you communicate your service? How do you ensure that there is a clarity in your service providing, in your conversations, in the documentations that you provide as part of your service? We're going to be talking about a bit of a behind the scenes. How do you ensure file management is not only up to date, but as per what the Law Society says, ensure that your files are searchable, indexable, and are easy to retrieve. Because the last thing you want to be doing is scampering to get that one file that you need to close and make that money on. And the big topic that a lot of my legal professional friends in a way talk about is financial management. We often talk about the left brain, right brain. I think there are a few of us, including myself, that are not necessarily happy with numbers. Financial management is really not our cup of tea. But what can software, what are the obligations to begin with? So let's talk about what are the obligations to begin with, and then give you some ideas of how you have help today. How doing this manually, the old way, doesn't have to be the only way that's available. Software, as well as other means, have come a long way to facilitate financial management and make it easier on you to focus on what you do best. There's a quick question about getting a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, we will be having this entire conversation recorded and available for you to access. After financial management, we're going to be touching about business management. So you want to ensure not only are you doing your trust accounting and those aspects of your legal business taken care of, you also want to run a business that's profitable, that you're happy about, and gives you the time to relax with your family and friends, and also at the same time is doing really well as a business that you can be happy and proud of. So business management really talks about your business accounting, how you manage your books in terms of your general accounts, how do you manage your business in general, ensuring you have a good idea of a spread of where your clients are coming from, where are your marketing dollars going, where are you getting the best bang for your buck from your marketing dollars. All of that would be business management. How do I ensure that my revenue that's 50 grand this year would become 100 grand? What do I do to move myself up that ladder? Is all part of that business management equation. Professional management. The Law Society talks about how you have to get out there, talk to your peers, understand the vibe, really understand what's happening around you. It doesn't have to be only technology, and just policies, but also understand the lay of the land. Get your credits as you are doing today. So this is a great step for you to spend this next 1 hour to learn what we're saying, but also use that as you continue down your path of being that legal professional. So professional management obviously is a big thing and is a big part of your obligation. Time management. It's a very simple term. I mean, who's to talk to who, right? Time management is very critical, and I'm not a legal professional, but I could tell you, having worked with hundreds of professionals through our software, I can certainly vouch for the lack of time that our legal professional friends have. They're always scampering. They're always doing 10 times at once. And time management, at the end of the day, allows you to be successful, happy, and gives you that confidence to wake up the next day well prepared, knowing what you want to do, whether it's professional or whether it's for your personal life. And then the personal management. That really talks about everything that we said. At the end of the day, we're all bringing food to the table. And you, as a legal professional, are passionate about being a legal professional who's going out there litigating and doing what you do. But at the end of the day, beyond passion, there's a bit of that personal time and management that's required so that you're happy doing this. You don't want to be a frowny who really doesn't like what they're doing, doesn't have the time to do other things. So you want to ensure that personal management becomes a key component of your overall obligation, as well as what you bring to the table. So we're going to spend the next little bit talking about each of these components, a little bit of a deep dive, if you will. So we'll start maybe with the client intake, service, and communication. So as part of your professional obligation, we've picked the 5 components that we think are critical to talk about. Everything else can almost be summarized under one of these major topics. And I'll walk you through what we believe are the understanding that we receive, not only from reading the bookkeeping guidelines, but also talking to leading lawyers and paralegals and legal professionals in this industry. A detailed recording of calls and consultations. Okay, so almost as the first step as your client intake, before many times these clients, I'm sure, entertain giving you a call, trying to really understand how you can help them, the type of services that you offer beyond visiting your website. I think it's a great idea for everyone to have a really good website. It almost becomes your visiting card that people can look at, understand who you are, but that personal touch to be able to call you and understand is important. So when you do take that first call, whether it's a ghost client or someone who's serious, you want to be able to ensure that you record these conversations and consultations if there are, either for a fee or not for a fee. But regardless, it's really important that you have a detailed recording of these calls and conversations. Even if it's a client, you want to make sure that you record it, whether manually or through a software system that it is a ghost client. Somebody flirted with the idea, but then never came back and retained you as a client. So it's really important and imperative that you record these discussions and consultations. And as part of the client intake, the Law Society obviously gives you really good tips about the type of information you want to capture. You don't want to capture their first name, last name. You definitely want to capture their address, a means of how you can communicate. So communication address. And email has become not necessarily the formal way of sending communication, but it's certainly become one of the accepted ways of communicating with the client. So being able to have your phone number recorded, your email recorded, all of that becomes a big part of that component. Once you do intake, and another segue to recording information, again, going back to your own business management, at the time when you intake your client, you could potentially ask them, have you heard how they heard about you? What was that source of contact to begin with? What was that lead? Where did it come from? Did they see your website? Was it a walk-in? Was it a friend referral? Being able to capture that during that client intake just makes it that much more easier for you to understand and have a better insight for where are your clients coming from to begin with. Okay. Now, once you have that client intake done, you've saved that information, you've got their basic information into some shape or form of system, you want to be able to perform a conflict check. The Law Society wants you to ensure that there is no conflict to begin with, or if there is a conflict, then you are fully aware of what that conflict is. So do your due diligence, being able to check for first name, last name conflicts. A very simple search should be able to retrieve a first name, last name conflict. And really depending on your type of business, you might just know right from the get-go that there's no conflict. But if you're a type of business where you meet hundreds of customers, then you want to make sure that just that one first name, last name conflict search is not enough. So you want to be able to search if you've created a matter for someone with that first name, last name. By any chance, have you represented someone in the family in your previous job? You want to also want to understand, have I even met this individual? Maybe he was a witness to another case. So having a granular point of view of the touch points you've had with maybe someone similar to that client that you've intaken, it's really important that you have that conflict screening done to have that peace of mind. And it's also, Law Society does have a report that they would like you to generate, ideally, so that you can tell them why you determined that they were not a conflict to begin with. So again, going back to that business management, but also your practice management, ensuring that you're doing what's required and having the discipline to record it, whether it's a document or anything else that's required for you as a legal professional. Determining collateral for fees. Yeah, there's always the elephant in the room. Some of our clients are very, right on their website. They know exactly what they need out of their work. They know what they're going to be charging them. Some of them have flexible rates. Some of them have flat fees. Some of them have a contingency. So there's varieties of ways in which legal professionals deal with how they better determine fees. And it's important that you establish that right in the get-go. You want to make sure you let your client know that this is going to be the fees that you're going to be charging, and you want to set your policies, your terms right up front, so there are no surprises to you and for your client. And let's say you agree upon that term and condition. The legal professional is one of the very few professions that allow you to take money in advance. And it's called a retainer, as you already know. And the retainer is a very powerful way in which you can ensure that your work is safeguarded. You don't want to end up, regardless of whether you're just starting off or you're an experienced legal professional, it's imperative that you have that retainer as a peace of mind, because that's the money that you're going to hold against the work that you're doing. We've had instances, and we've spoken to a lot of our friends in this industry who have taken up the job, done the work, but ended up not being paid by their client, either because, again, it could be many reasons, right? It was a leap of faith. It was sometimes just wanting that experience, but if you're not getting paid, it's not fun. And so a retainer is a great way in which you're able to take that money up front. There are retainer letters that you need to draft. It's a great habit or a discipline to have retainer letters, which clearly illustrate the amount of money that you're charging. You could set up policies as to when you want to top up your retainer. Some of our clients have a very, very strong retainer letter which says, hey, once I hit, I'm going to take $1,000, but once it dips to about $250, then I'm going to remind you of a top up. There are systems that can help you automate this as well. And as part of taking that retainer, you want to ensure that if you are taking that retainer, that money goes into your trust account. As a legal professional, you have your trust account if you're going to be doing trust and handling trust, and your retainer money goes into your trust account, which is separate from your general account, which is for yourself. Okay, so it's really important that you deposit that retainer trust account and provide your client with that receipt so that he and you agree that it's the $1,000 that you agreed upon, that he doesn't come back a month later and say it was not $1,000, it was $100. Then you're going to be like, buddy, here's your retainer receipt. You signed it, I signed it, and it's $1,000. Okay. Again, non-engagement is not many times is not a great thing for business, but many times it could be for your sanity. So if you think that, and again, non-engagement does not have to be a one-way street. It's not just the client non-engaging you. It's you as a professional having the need to not engage a client too. So setting those ground rules about what those non-engagement rules are, and having, again, documentation that can make it easier and formal for both parties to agree upon is another part of the communication and the service that you would provide. So having these components would not only make you look very professional in front of your client, but it also gives you that personal satisfaction that you really know what you're doing and you have everything intact. Again, a further deeper dive into what we talk about in terms of those top 5 components. Again, the Law Society in its bookkeeping guidelines does provide you with a lot of help in outlining it, and we've kind of taken the main excerpt out of that document to give you that a good retainer agreement contains, what is the scope of the matter? Is it a criminal offense? Is it a DUI? Is it a small claim? Is it a offense issue? Is it a POA? So to be really able to tell what that area of practice or nature of that job is, the responsibilities, in terms of, again, everything that we spoke, being able to top up that retainer, being able to make timely payments. Maybe you have a 15-day payment, 30-day payment, so you set those ground rules. Method and frequency of communication that can be set up in retainers too, or the documents that you serve to your client. Termination, non-engagement or termination details many times go a long way in giving both the parties involved that freedom of speech and as well as the ability to use that to non-engage. Legal practitioner or client confidentiality. You want to ensure that you as a representative of that individual ensure the confidentiality of everything that's being spoken about and recorded. And you do want to associate the risks that go along with certain modes of communication, such as email, which is today is a proven way of communicating, but that's something that you want to establish with the WikiLeaks being what it is these days. Who are you and I, right? All right, so that's kind of part 1. So I think I'm doing good for time. It's about 10, 15 minutes of me kind of rounding away about the first aspect of what we spoke were the professional obligations, where we talk about client intake, service, and communication. And now we're going to move to the next agenda, which is going to be file management. So let's agree that your clients come in, you've done all the due diligence, you've done extremely well in recording it, intaking the client, taking that retainer. Everyone signed documents, everyone's happy, and then that client leaves your office. Now it's really up to you to start focusing on how you want to win that case for your client. How do you litigate? How do you manage your files? Either before or after, you would start a matter for that client. It's ideal you start it when he's right there, because there's a bunch of documents that you can generate in creating that matter for him or her, making it easier on both parties, as I mentioned, right from client ID verification. That's a big part of that initial intake, ensuring that he or she is who they say they are. Maybe getting a driver's license to ensure, and having that scanned and having that part of your system goes a long way. So now comes the whole file management. And it's file because it's simpler terms, but really it's the matter, it's the folder, it's everything that you want it to be. It's that one file, it's that one matter. And you want to be able to have a quick checklist about the incoming matters. And you want to ensure you've got that conflict screening report as part of that file. It's all a very chronological step-by-step process to all the disciplined documentation that you generated one step along the way, right? So when you did that conflict screening, you had that report, or you did some search to know why they are not a conflict. So you want to record that and have that copy electronically or physically. If you're used to the manila folders and that's how you do it, then that's how you roll. But if you like to have access to that information wherever you are and have it electronic, so you're not worried about the physical copies, then you obviously make an electronic version and have it stored electronically available. And cloud storage and file management on the cloud has come a long way. It's bank-grade security. It is, I wouldn't say it is the only thing, but it is becoming a standard that we all come to agree upon, despite the perceived notion of lack of security. The Law Society does want you to ensure that you have separate files, separate file numbers for each of the respective matters. So you can't just open up a file for a Joan Smith and have the same file number for the 3 or 4 different matters that you may represent Joan Smith for. Not that you can't, it's just simpler and easier, and it's a lot more, there's a lot more sanity in how you would manage your files when you do that. And it's easier for you to search for information, and depending on how convoluted your cases are, it just makes that much more simpler. Okay, so that's really a good practice to have separate file numbers for each of the respective matters. Again, going back to being able to securely have that organized and have a chronological aspect to file management. And then that's in my limited experience working in this industry for at least the last 7 years. I think having that chronological storage of information. Step 1, I did this, here's my document. Step 2, I did this, here's my document. Having the chronological discipline in file management goes a long way in paying off when it comes to audit, or when you wake up in the middle not knowing where that file is. Recording of client interactions. It could be a telephone conversation, maybe a docketable time, may not be a docketable time, but regardless, you want to tell that client you were there to take that call when they needed it. So to be able to record every touch point, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone conversation, or whether it's an in-person meeting, goes a long way in building your credibility and your dockets, and however you agreed upon in your original retainer agreement. And a proper organization through numeric and cross-indexing. And what that really means is you want to be able to search for an individual and quickly associate that individual with various touch points across matters. So if you dealt with an Alex, and for you to recognize that Alex Rodriguez, in this example, is not only a client, but is maybe a different party in a different matter that you've dealt with. So really having a snapshot of an individual and kind of that 360 view and being able to cross-index matters and people across your files would just give you that much more power in knowing who your client is. I can see a lot more individuals logging in. I'm sorry we missed you the first 15-20 minutes, but rest assured you have this video uploaded after the session today. Okay, so being able to organize it and being able to uniquely index it. So it's really important that you create a way of creating a system where you can create unique numbers. Software available today, including uLaw, I had to say it, but including your uLaw and all other softwares today, do allow you to create unique numbers that don't repeat. You don't want to have like a AB123, but end up giving an AB123, or especially when people use the year, sometimes they just miss the file number. So you don't want to do that. You want to be able to always be confident about a unique matter number that is associated with that file. Okay? So again, ensuring there's a checklist, confirming with a chronological way of storing information and documents, and all within a cross-indexed, unique referenceable file management system, regardless whether that's on the cloud or it's in your office. These are some key components that can help you manage your files better. Financial management, right? There's a reason why it's in a very different blood red color. It's not for everybody. It's not for the weak-hearted. But unfortunately, as a legal professional, at some time you do have to deal with this, regardless of whether you have a bookkeeper or accountant or not, because you are the one who's obligated to sign that monthly reconciliation if you deal with trust. And I think it's more empowering to know that today you don't have to be an accountant, you don't have to be a bookkeeper, you don't have to be great with numbers, but a certain discipline or a certain software or knowing how you go about doing things can empower you to be on top of your financial numbers and being able to be confident in meeting with your bookkeepers and your auditors, right? So from a financial management perspective, I'm not going to just read what's in this presentation, but just to use as a context, fee scheduling of hourly rate and being able to record billable time, and that's a very key component. It's a basic component of the financial management, right? You're doing all of this to bring food to the table, and hence you want to make sure you are able to docket time, whether it's hourly, flat rate, contingency. You still want to be able to capture what is it that you contributed to that matter on that day. And if it's a billable item, then even better, right? You want to make sure that you capture that event. And it's a great discipline to bring when you can do it when it actually happened. I know many of our legal friends do it after the fact, and that's just because they're scampering and running around. But again, with tools and technology, with mobile apps, you are able to capture the moment right there, docket it, and ensure that it's billed, because then the software is kind of working for you, or your assistant maybe is working for you to put all of that together as an invoice that needs to get sent out, for example. Prompt transmission of and delivery of invoices to client. This is something we've heard. We've been in a lot of conferences. We've spoken to our existing clients. We've spoken to other leaders in this industry. And again, sometimes depending on your file, depending on your case, it might vary. But they all agree upon one thing: is always have that discipline of having an interim billing cycle and establishing that upfront with their clients too, letting them know, and again, being prompt about it, right? If there's a certain work that you've done, you want to make sure that you can make that money. If it's trust money, you do have to raise that invoice, because that is your legal document to prove the work you've done, and to be able to document exactly what you've done and let your client know that that's the dollar amount that you're now going to move from your trust to general. So only when you do that do you actually make the money. So being prompt, but also having a discipline to deliver interim invoices can go a long way in not having to catch up at the last moment. And many times you don't want to provide a huge surprise to your client with the final invoice being what it is, and the guy being admitted in hospital having looked at that invoice. So you want to really prepare him for what's to come, if you will. And again, all this in a lighter vein. It's a Friday afternoon. and my voice is just breaking and it's getting really boring maybe, but on the lighter vein, ensuring a timely delivery of invoice in an interim cycle is going to really make your lives easier. Tracking of overpayments on accounts. Again, there's many ways in how you can track overpayments, underpayments, defaulters. So you want to be able to capture all those aspects of money. You want to know who's the guy who pays you on time, who's the guy who always doesn't pay you on time, and who's the guy who never pays you, right? And obviously being able to quickly get to that person and doing whatever it takes to close that matter. Recording of general accounts through general receipts and disbursement entries. So again, if you're paying out of your general for disbursements, which is your money, and in the hope that you are able to disperse that to your client for that matter, all part of that retainer or all part of the initial agreements, and whatever you agree to. So if you've agreed that it would be a flat fee plus disbursement, or a billable fee, or a fixed fee rate plus disbursements, at some time if you do end up dispersing and paying it out of your own credit card maybe, which is a general account, then you want to make sure you record it. Not only can you record it today, there are tools that allow you to, like Evernote is a great example of an application that allows you to quickly take a photograph of that receipt. So let's say there was a mileage fee and it was part of your disbursement, or maybe there's a lunch or dinner tab, whatever that disbursement be, you are now able to take a quick snapshot of it and ensure that copy or that electronic copy of that receipt is also part of that disbursement that you associate. Sometimes it's as straightforward as an application fee or a court fee, which you may pay out of your general too. And sometimes you write checks, so having a remittance of that check always helps, and having that scanned and made all available in that file, again in a chronological fashion, really gives you that peace of mind when it comes to audit, when it comes to that monthly juggle. Maintenance of original bank statements and books, cancel checks. Again, we're just getting granular here, but again, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir beyond a point, but it's important that this gets resonated on a daily basis, things that you should do and can do to make your lives easier. It's always important, and part of the bookkeeping, what we've realized, is if you could do it, have that discipline to do it almost on a daily basis or based on a quick cycle that's easier for you to cover, mirroring your bank and your books shouldn't be that hard if you can do it on a daily basis. Easier said than done, but I think it's a great discipline to have. Find your own cycle to ensure that your books and your banks are mirrored. And tools, again, like uLaw, do allow you to do that, and do want to take advantage of such systems wherever possible. Preparation of financial statements. Income expense statements are more for your business. To gauge your firm's health. So again, going back to your business management, it's imperative that we all bank with either a TD, RBC, or a credit union. That's all from the general side. One quick side topic on the bank statement is it should be easier to just import your bank statement from any of these banks into a system. That way it's easier to reconcile your general too, not only your trust. But then having a better hold on your firm's business health really goes a long way. It goes back to what we were talking about, knowing that, POA is really my top niche breadwinner, or criminal is really my top niche breadwinner. Those are the types of analytics and insights that are going to help you at the end of the day to plan and prepare your law firm or your solo practice and take it to the next level. So keeping all of these aspects of financial management as you litigate and as you conduct yourself as a legal professional is really going to allow you to keep that balance as a business owner and as a professional. Again, a further deeper dive to financial management. When you do take trust money, which is a really big deal in the law society, it's always frowned upon when you have trust errors, right? It's many times it has led to licenses being canceled. Those are obviously extremes, but it's not something that we don't see day to day. And trust money, it's, as the word sounds, trust. It's given with a lot of trust, and it's important that you manage that money with the highest respect and with professional obligation. And it's really important as part of your monthly reconciliation that the Law Society mandates that you have your ledger, you have your trust ledger, your journals. Very important to have your journals. Many times the auditors would want a very deep dive into these documents, your trust ledger, your journal, your disbursements journal. So if you're going to be dispersing out of your trust, and if that's a habit that you have, which is it's always nice to do it because you're not running out of your money, then having the monthly trust comparisons and reconciliation. It's kind of your top 4 or 5 documents that kind of really touch upon how you manage trust money within your firm. These documents really should give your auditor and yourself and your bookkeeper, if there is one, the confidence that you're doing the right job. And as always in life, once is always. So once you get it right, it's just it's just almost a practice that it becomes that you're able to handle a very similar cycle for all your clients. I'm just being reminded of my support team that it's a couple of ledgers. I want to read what the bookkeeping guidelines talk about real quick. It's 2 ledgers, 4 journals, and 1 reconciliation, fee book, an expense book, and a total of 9 documents. If I were to draw your attention real quick, I want to highlight what those documents are because it's important for you to capture. So these are all the Law Society compliance documents: client's trust, client's general, trust receipt, general receipt, trust payments, disbursement, fee book, expense book, and finally the trust reconciliation, which is just a checkbox off. Okay. So we've kind of covered the top 3 areas, and we've done almost 40 minutes into this webinar. I hope you're not sleeping. If you are, please wake up, have a cup of coffee. We're just getting started with our professional obligations. The professional obligations is a lot more higher up in the air kind of discussion, right? You can always have a 360-degree view. There's no right or wrong way. There's no mandate, but it's best practices. Many times, best practices enable you to be efficient right from the get-go. Because if you can learn from someone else's mistake, nothing better than that, right? So some of the things that we're going to be talking about is based on best practices, what we've heard, what we've read, and what we've seen with our clients and others in this industry. So we'll welcome one of our clients in. Software. I think we at uLaw have, beyond just talking about uLaw as a product, we've often spoken about the need for any software, right? We want to really get our legal friends in this, at least in Canada. I mean, I'm not worried too much about south of the border. Want to make sure that our legal friends, professionals, especially the solos and the small, because when you're in a large law firm, then you pretty much do what they want because they do have a discipline. I think they're working towards having one constructive environment where you all are working, and then you really are focusing on your day-to-day, and there's always 5 or 6 admins who can take care of all of this. But to whom this is really important, it's still an obligation they manage, but someone else does it for them, so it's kind of cool. But if you're a solo practitioner, if you're a small law firm, and you don't have that luxury, then you need to start thinking about these components that help you through that process, through that, that whole cycle of being a legal professional. So software today, I mean, we all have phones. A phone is a software beyond a point. It's not meant for just making calls anymore. So software becomes very important and part of legal accounting. See, there's a major component to the legal profession, which is the legal accounting aspect to it. You're not a plumber, and you're not doing other, professional work in Canada. You are a legal professional, and there are certain obligations that go along with it. So there's trust money that's involved, right? So there is a certain sophistication, for lack of a better term, that goes beyond it. So for lack of a better term, you do need that software. You do need that sophistication to help you manage who you are as an individual. So it's very imperative that you want to get away from manual capturing of information. Even in an Excel sheet is software. So the point is, get away from writing this on sticky notes, because there are better ways to do it. Ensuring that your files are backed up on a timely manner and are secure is part of your obligation. Because again, you're a legal professional. When you take all that information in from your client, there's a little level of trust. There's an NDA kind of thing involved, a relationship that's established, and you do have to ensure that these files do not get misrepresented or get handled by someone else. So you want to ensure that these files are secure and backed up regularly. The classic example of, do I store this in-house? Do I store this on the cloud? Cloud, again, has come a long way in the last 6 to 7 years to become a very integral part of our lives. There's always that perceived notion, but we know friends who have lost files on their very secure PC, and we know friends who use cloud-based software and don't have to worry about nothing, and it's highly secure, and it's there is no case of fraudulence or lack of security. But the due diligence that you would have to do is, if you pick and choose a software that's on the cloud, ensure that it's HTTPS or highly secure. Ask the individual companies about how much of an encryption does it have, what's the password protection. Those are the types of questions. And we do have a webinar mid-late November that talks only about security and how you would manage that. So tune in to our webinars later in November. But yes, securing your files becomes a big part of your obligation. We're all mobile today, right? So I've seen lawyers and paralegals use iPads and devices at court. I've never seen that before in my life. I've seen them use phones, take notes, and practice management has come a long way, that now you have that power of the mobile and the power of communication and telecommunication to provide you that 6, 7, 8 gig of data that you can pull all the information on your mobile app. And software vendors like uLaw have made it easier to providing you with apps and the tools you need to be able to access information. Highly secure. Again, mobile doesn't mean that it's not secure, but obviously it has to be password protected and needs to have timely timeouts that ensure that even if your phone is with the wrong person, that they don't have the password, or if you're already logged in, that it times out in a very systematic manner that they would have to log in. Just like your bank. I mean, I have my TD Bank and I have an app, and that's how I run. Remote access. So whether you're using a PC-based system or a cloud-based system, obviously PC-based systems, to have remote access to that is a little bit more expensive, whereas cloud-based systems very naturally provide you that extension. But be able to remotely access that information on a very timely manner just makes you that much more empowered. Whether it's email, voice messages, or a practice management, file management system that you can quickly look at. And then we talk about the professional management, right? So this is, again, the context of you being a professional. What does Law Society recommend, or what do we hear from the industry as things, again, going back to best practices that would keep you on the top of your game. Membership to professional associations. So we've had the pleasure of working with various associations in Canada. They all do a fantastic job of ensuring that their members get due credit, whether it's CPD or whether it's a great deal on, I've actually been known a membership where they provide deals on certain law books or other things that you need as a law professional. Being part of a professional association kind of gives you that feeling of oneness, right? You can voice your opinion, have that heard. So being part of that really helps as a professional. Completion of the required CPD hours. I think there's professional hours and there's other types of hours that you would have to train yourself on. Obviously, today's webinar provides you with that CPD hours of professionalism, which is great, and it's no charge, so thank you. We'll take it. Being part of the membership too gives you the visibility to know what's happening in terms of new legislations and case laws. Regardless of whether you're in a membership or not, I think it's very important that you review and do your research of new legislations, case laws, very simple things that even a court form that goes through a change, making sure that you understand that you're using the most latest court forms. Many times, if you're using the old forms and you apply it, and then the court's going to say, "Sorry, but use the new form." So ensuring that you have those latest information definitely goes a long way. And we at uLaw do that. We'll love you to automate court forms, and we always ensure that it's the latest version of that court form you have. But again, it's important that you do that research and keep yourself up to date. And reviewing the professional conduct guidelines. I think, how do you conduct yourself as a legal professional? I think there are guidelines, and you can Google it to download it. I think that goes a long way in you being able to conduct yourself and as a representative of your firm. So I think we've kind of covered the top 5 or 6 components of what I wanted to speak. I wanted to take a quick recap of everything that we've discussed before I jump into time and personal management. So from an overall professional obligation, we spoke about client intake, file management, financial, business management, and we've kind of covered the professional management aspect to it. From a time management and personal management, again, there's nothing we're going to tell you that you do not know already. The Stephen Coveys of the world have already done this for us. You pretty much already know it. But the slight twist to how you manage and maintain the time as a legal professional can be really interesting. So we all know you got to make a checklist. I have a blackboard in my kitchen and I write stuff on it. But then being able to use that as a legal professional to remind yourself whether it's billable or non-billable, especially if it's billable, can go a long way. So you want to always think of the core concept and then think of how you can marry to make that apply to your life in a very easy way. Can I use software? Can I use a certain process? Even if it's manual, can I have a discipline about how I do that? That's what you want to think about. So maintaining a to-do list obviously is a great thing. As I said, legal professionals, they are running around. There's many things that you guys do. So we thank you and kudos to who you are as a legal professional, but obviously you do a lot of things at the same time. So having that to-do list goes a long way. Management of active files. I'll take a quick pause here. In discussing with some of the top leaders in this space, we often find that one of the topmost items that people spend their time on is being able to search for information, search for files, right? Especially if you've had a long career and you've had a lot of files to deal with, and you want to refer a file. Let's say you want to refer a certain matter. How did you go about winning that case? It's really important that you are able to differentiate your files in various classifications. You could close your certain files. You can archive files, or you can keep them active. Or you can come up with your own terminology to classify files so that it's easier now to search for files based on that classification. So managing active files always has to be the number one item because that's what you're running behind. The closed and archived are traditionally used for conflict screening or for references, right? So to be able to classify that and manage it separately would, in a way, save you some time. Time dockets for non-billable time. So many times, if you're doing, whether it's non-billable, pro bono, I guess it's the same in many ways, but sometimes non-billable time could also mean that it's a flat rate fee and you're still doing the docket, but you're not charging them for it. But regardless, being able to docket it, I think in this context, it's kind of a pro bono situation. If you are a good Samaritan, if you're doing it, you still want to capture it because you can then, end of the day, end of the month, end of the year, really look back, as to what is the pro bono, where have I spent the time where I probably shouldn't have spent. Those are the types of analytics that you probably want to look at. Again, going back to how do you manage time? How do you manage time within the office? So non-billable time many times takes away a lot of your prime time to do billable tasks. Okay, so you want to make sure you docket that, track it, so that you can act on it, right? If you're not, as they say, if you're not tracking it, you can't really measure it. So you want to be able to track it so that you can take a deep dive approach to it at a later time. Continuing on our professional obligations, again, I've spoken about time management enough, but it's kind of three components that really stand out. But as I said, a big takeaway for you would be, how do you use automated systems that are out there? And again, I'm not looking to sell software, but I'm looking to sell you the concept of a software or an automated tool that can make your lives easier, save you the time, take away those mundane tasks that you don't have to do because you don't have the time to begin with. Personal management, right? Again, it comes back to who you are as an individual. Are you that daredevil? Are you fighting the system? Or are you doing this or a combination of everything, right? Are you bringing this to bring food to the table? Or are you passionate about being a legal professional? Regardless, being able to have that personal management component, as part of this career is equally important. Obviously, you need to be satisfied with the legal practice. You really need to enjoy areas of practice that you focus on, because if criminal is really not your thing, but you're educated to do it, and maybe you got a good first couple of clients and it gives you good money, doesn't necessarily mean that you really enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, chances of you continuing that beyond a point can be hard. Not that we don't do it, we still do it, but it's just harder to do something that you don't like. So to be able to understand the areas of practice that brings you money, but also satisfaction, and that one unison would really give you a good idea of the types of areas of practice that you want to focus on as a legal practitioner, right? How satisfied are you with the growth of your law firm or your legal firm? Where do you want to be 2 years down the line? These are questions that every professional asks, regardless of his career, regardless of being a legal professional or not. But having that goal as a legal professional gives you, I think, the vision of doing all this for a purpose. And having the tools that allow you to track and measure gives you the proof that you're doing what you're doing and you're aiming towards that. Or for some reason you're not reaching there, you at least know where you are and you can take corrective steps to get to where you want to be. Recording of your time spent on work and the vacation taken. Some of our legal friends often tell us that they don't take a vacation. And many times it's because of the types of work that they take. It's because of court times. It always coincides, right? So it's really hard as a legal professional to be able to manage and juggle that. But it's important that you take that time off. Ensure that you're recording the time that you've done, because many times you can't take vacations because you didn't record the billable time, or you didn't charge the client in a timely manner, and you didn't make the money, or many times you didn't move money from cross to general. So there's various components that you're juggling, but as part of a personal management, ensure you're able to, as much as possible, segregate time between work and taking time off. And that's kind of the last point, is ensure a work-life balance. I don't know if it's true or not, but I hear a lot of legal professionals taking up yoga. Again, I can't vouch for it, but it's an article that I read. It really allows you to relax and have a different perspective and manage that stress, which is very high in your profession. And whatever form of relaxation and stress management you take, you want to apply something that makes best sense for you. So we've kind of covered the key components of the professional obligations and the different aspects to it. Hope this was your time well spent. I'm going to cover the next 15 minutes and then open the floors for any questions. I'm going to speak about, now that you know what you know about the professional obligations. We all know there's a practice management software out there. It's being taught at school. We know many things about what practice management software can do. You are well read, and we all use Google, and we're all scapegoats of the same Google AdWord. You go to a place, you search for it, you're going to be hit with that place, right? So let's not run away from the fact that there is a practice management software, and there are many softwares out there. And this is not a session to talk about uLaw. We are yet another software, Canadian, local, but this is not to talk about uLaw. But it's to talk about practice management software and the benefits that it can give you. If you already know it, then this is great, because we're just saying the same thing that you know, and it's always reassuring. It has been proven that the total cost of ownership between using a software program to you doing this manually on the long run is significantly lower compared to doing this manually. The overhead costs, the need to remember things, what's the value and what's the cost and what's the value of doing that, right? If somebody can take that away from you but still keep you compliant and profitable, why not? Efficiencies in practice. We're talking about time management. We're talking about personal management. One of the most important aspects to how you get to that is being efficient. And how can you be efficient? By having the right tools and the practice management aspects of those tools that combine to give you that efficiency. So to be able to do a conflict screening report by a software and you not having to do it manually is you being efficient and saving that time. Being compliant. Okay, so that's the number one goal legal professionals have, is I want to do all of this, but darn it, I have to be compliant, because that's just part of your role and that's just part of who you are, and it's all for a purpose. And LSUC has its guidelines for a very specific purpose, because this is a very reputable profession and it's really hard to get into. So you want to manage the integrity of that, that league. So being compliant is here to stay, but can you use software programs to make you compliant? So you're kind of doing what you have to do, but behind the scene is keeping you compliant. Software programs should do that, and we do. And the fourth component is something that we can argue upon. Do I need that flexibility of being able to practice anywhere? Do I want to be in Hawaii but also have my practice management software available on my phone just in case? Okay, that's something that we can argue a whole day. But the idea here is, do I need that flexibility? You can always switch off the phone when you're in Hawaii, but if you're in the court, if you want to docket your time, if you want to record your notes, and having that information, maybe you met your client and he wants to make a payment. How cool would it be to just take his payment right there on your phone, right? That's where we're getting to. You don't want to be saying, oh, let me go back to my office, open up my PC, and then I will give you a call, and I'll let you know when you can come meet me to give you my check, right? So you don't want to do that. Times are advanced, and technology is enabling you to be advanced and efficient. So you want to take advantage of those things. From a pure play matter management, what are the different aspects that you manage? Again, going behind that practice management component that specifically talk about matter management, right? We spoke about file organization, docketing, dispersing, and ensuring that you update the status of your matters at closed, active, or archived. To be able to have that all within a practice management software is just going to make your life that much more easier, right? A software should ideally be able to generate Law Society compliant documents, generate disbursement records. It should be able to generate a retainer receipt, so you're not drafting this on a Word document. And softwares do. And they do give you that flexibility, and it gives you that potential to be very efficient. I'm not going to go through that. I don't want to disturb the integrity of this webinar. But again, for those who don't know uLawPractice, we're a cloud-based Canadian legal accounting and practice management software. Please check us out at uLawPractice.com. We're happy to help. Now, this goes back to your business management when I'm talking about matter analytics. It's always important that, at the end of a week, on a weekend, to have a bit of a retrospection to who you are and where you're going after, to have an understanding of the health of your business, right? To understand the state of your business and what corrective measures you can take to get back to that final goal that you set out yourself to be. You want to understand your past success and set yourself up for future success too. Understand your failures, and all of this, again, beyond what you know in your head, numbers can speak for yourself, and practice management softwares can give you, again, legal accounting softwares and practice management softwares can give you that insight that you need to be able to give you those exact numbers. In the month of November, let's say I plan to make $5,000. I can know that in September and October, traditionally, 2015, in September and October, I knew that I made $6,000. It knows, and there's a lot of accidents, right? So those are the types of analytics that can really help for you to plan your future, plan your money, plan the areas of practice that you think is going to start getting busy. And analytics can really help you answer those powerful questions, as it states here, that law firms, the larger law firms, they do it. And that's the kind of predictive modeling that they use internally to be at the right time, at the right place. So you having that power as a sole practitioner or as a small law firm can certainly make you efficient, can certainly make you empowered, and can certainly take you along to the next level. A big part of, we spoke about this, whether it's personal management or business management, it's really important to have a calendar. Depending on which area of practice you focus on, ensuring a timely court date is met as part of your matter can become a do or die situation, and calendarization for personal time, calendarization for time dockets, for court dates, all become part of that practice management software. And again, it's a software. It could be on an Outlook, but as long as you have a way of marrying your matter to that Outlook calendar, that's all that matters. If it's easy, cost-effective, and efficiently done, then it really doesn't matter what software you're using. It's just the concept of having to use these concepts within that practice management is what's important. Having that weekly agenda view, whether it's yourself or whether it's your assistant who's helping you with that, it's really important that you have that view so that you can plan the week ahead, quickly understand what are my personal time slots, what are my docketed time slots, what are my court dates to attend, and planning for it really empowers you. Don't want to spend much of time because this would be a sales spiel, but court forms is a part of what you do. Is filling up court forms is a big part of being a legal professional, depending on the areas of practice. We at uLaw enable you and empower you to automate those court forms if at all that's of interest to you. That, again, time saver. Yet another feature by another practice management, but a legal accounting software, right? Different products bring their own sphere of influence and the way they manage things. Court form automation is something we do very well. I think we've touched upon this, accounting, trust in general. Being able to manage your practice's financial goals and the truth is really important. And if you manage trust, there are two aspects to that financial. It's the trust money and it's the general money. Being able to put that together to give you an insight about how your financial management is taking is really important. And the trust money that you manage are reported to the auditors and is reported by yourself through that monthly reconciliation report. So that's really important that from a trust perspective, you have those 5 or 6 documents we spoke about. And from a business management perspective, it's really important you manage the general aspect of your business. So you know where you're getting the money from, who's paying you, those types of things. What is your day of sale? It's a big question that people don't ask. What is your day of sale? How long does it really take for a client to pay you for your service? Is it 30 days really, or is it actually 45 days? And how many steps do you actually have to take to get that money within those 4 days? Key financial records. I think we spoke about it a little bit, but again, reiterating that ledgers, journals, disbursement journals, fee books, those top 9 documents that we shared early on. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover today as part of this webinar. Again, as they say, a few words from our sponsors. I don't want to go there, but again, we're uLaw is a bit of a reputable company today in Ontario and slowly towards Canada. We're a Canadian legal accounting practice management software, and we do many of these things that we spoke about in a very easy, cost-effective, Canadian-priced way. So please do check us out at uLawPractice.com. We do offer a no-obligation 30-day trial. I don't want any of this to be part of your webinar. But that being said, I would like to open up the floor for any questions that you may have with regards to our webinar today. Again, I kindly request that you send us an email confirming that you participated in this webinar. That way we can use that as a record when you apply for your CPD credits, and we can make sure that you get it. And please feel free to send us your feedback on how we did in this webinar. If there are other topics that you would like us to cover that are interesting to you but are not being spoken about, we will reach out to the Law Society to see if we can get credits for that. If not, we'll at least make it a fun-filled webinar for you. So we sincerely appreciate feedback, and we appreciate your email confirming your participation today. And I'll open up the floors, but I will open up the chat window to take any questions that you may have today. Okay. There's a quick question about the 9 documents that the Law Society wants us to show. I can take you through that real quick. Absolutely. Or even better, I can show it to you. So if you look at the compliance, Law Society compliant documents, it talks about the client's trust, the client's general, top 2 ledgers, and then you have 4 journals. You have your trust receipt, your general receipt, your trust, and your general disbursements. We spoke about how important those are, especially the general disbursements, because you do disperse your client. And on the remaining 3, they would like to look at your fee book, your expense book, and definitely your trust reconciliation for every month. This is kind of a monthly thing that the Law Society auditors would ideally look for when they audit. I hope that answered that question. Okay, I've got another email asking me a question about payments and efficiencies using payment gateways. The question is, how can we be efficient as part of the whole concept of efficiency? Maybe that's something I missed. I apologize. But payments are a big part of your business management. It's a component of your business management, ensuring that you're getting paid on time. Yes, there are tools out there. There's Moneris, there's Pivotal Payments, and there are other gateway providers that Chase, and you have Swipe, that make it easy and convenient for you to accept payments. But there are very few, like Moneris and Pivotal, that manage trust monies too in a compliant way. So you want to be able to pick and choose the right credit card vendor who can facilitate compliant payments. And today they enable you to take credit card payments for even your trust monies and ensure that it's, the service fees are only taken out of your general. Yeah, that's definitely something that we're seeing in the industry. Oh, thank you, Gail. I appreciate it. Thank you. There's a quick question. Are client disbursements recorded part of revenue? Good question. It shouldn't be, right? Because that's part of your recoverable expense. So really a client disbursement is part of your recoverable expense because you're spending on it, but you're hoping that you'll recover it. Having that as part of a revenue would be misleading. But having it as a recoverable expense would be meaningful because you want to make sure that you're not losing out on that money. So it's kind of a quasi thing where it's really not your money, but it's your money. You could make it a revenue, but you would kind of be misleading yourself. No, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I will definitely keep the floor open for a few more minutes for any questions that there may be. And please do, again, use the chat window. It's easier for me and the support staff to look at it. Sure. I think that's a great feedback from one of the participants to be able to send the Q&A as part of the email. So again, we appreciate if there's any questions that you may have after this webinar, please send it to us and we will answer those and maybe circulate that as an addendum as part of this webinar. Just so you know, we will be this whole conversation is being recorded right now as we speak, and I will stop the recording just before we pull the plug here, and you will have access to it in a couple of days once we've kind of edited the videos for you to review. And great point. We will certainly see if we can add the Q&A as part of that. There's another quick last question. I'll probably take a few more questions. It is a Friday afternoon about calendars. If you can maybe explain yourself as to what you mean by calendars, it would be great. I can maybe open the... Okay, so the question is, do I use the calendar for personal and for my professional work, or do I use separate calendars for separate work? That's an interesting question. Now, it really depends on your style and how you work. If your tool, if a software tool can enable you to manage both, then nothing better than that, because then you don't have to juggle between calendars, right? But it's all within that one unified view, and quickly, by looking at that calendar, maybe as a color code or anywhere else, or anything else that differentiates personal and docket time, should make it simple and easy for you to be able to look at one calendar for both. But if you're used to a certain discipline, again, as I said, it all comes back to your ability to have that discipline. Floss every day is a discipline, I guess, that you get out of 15 days of use doing it. So if there's a certain discipline that you've got around and train your mind around how you do things, and if you're being efficient, and let's say you go out there and do the research and you're like, you know what, my discipline is faster and more efficient and it's right for me, then that's all that matters. But if you were to ask me a question of which is easier, I would definitely say having one calendar is much more simpler than having to deal with two calendars. Especially when there's conflicts, right? Because if there's a conflict, if it's in one calendar, you pretty much know before you book the other person in. So purely from a conflict perspective, having one calendar is going to help you. Okay, maybe give it a couple more minutes if there are any questions, and we'll call it a day. Okay, I think we're getting one final question. I'll maybe take this as the last question for the day. Oh, okay, sorry. There's a separate question. So can someone confirm what is the email you have to send? All right, so let me put it on the chat window right now. All of us can see it. It's support@uLawPractice.com. That's the email, that you would have to send it to. And you should have received our confirmation emails or other emails if you're in our newsletter from that email ID. So please feel free to send it to us. So going back to that last question that one of our clients had regarding client portals. Yes, again, going back to software and how vendors are making it easy. Again, legal profession today is very different. Legal tech has come a long way. I think you should be really proud and happy that there are so many other companies and vendors that are looking for your business. At one point of time, about 20, 30 years back, there was just one or two, and you really didn't have much of a choice. But now you do. And portals are just, as we understand and see, and we try and implement that even with the new law, it's just a simple way for you to communicate in a very secure and in a kind of a closed room manner, electronically, digitally on the cloud with your client. And portals are today used for client payments, are used for correspondences. So maybe there's a private chat or a private messaging board between you and your client that's time-based. So as long as the life of the matter exists, that client then has access to that portal. You can easily upload invoices to those portals. You can have clients pay for it through that portal or through a link. So yeah, the portal is maybe the next evolution of, again, practice management is really not legal accounting yet. It's just a convenience that software is able to provide and technology is able to provide you as a business. Again, that's, a plumber could have that same convenience, being able to have a portal. But I think really the bottom line when it comes to why a legal professional should entertain it, if at all, would be the security of communication. So if email is being frowned upon as not so secure way of doing things, these private portal chat rooms or message boards just may be the answer to that. I hope that answered that question. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today for the uLaw webinar. We appreciate your time, and we hope this was an informational session and your time well spent. Please feel free to send us that email at support@uLawPractice.com, and you will be rest assured of us sending you a recorded version of this webinar. Have yourself a great Friday afternoon and a fantastic weekend ahead. Look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much.